Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. It's a rainy, miserable Thursday evening here in Auckland, wherever you're tuning in from. I also know it's a really busy time of the term with parent interviews and things going on, so really appreciate you taking the time to come and find out what this is all about. We'll be all done within an hour, and by the end of this session you should know everything you need to know about the process and what's involved. I'll get straight into introducing myself, and we're really fortunate tonight that we've got three of our Australian-based specialists, consultants joining us as well. So I'll introduce myself and then I'll pass over to them. So I'm a New Zealand trained primary school teacher, and I am based, as I said, in Auckland. I taught here in New Zealand for 3 years before I went and I made the move to the UK, so lived and worked in London. I have been supporting Kiwi-based educators making the move to the UK as well as Australia, and yeah, so I'm here to support you from this side of the world. But we've also got I think we've got about 180 consultants across Australia. I'm not sure, you guys might correct me on that, but I'll pass over to Luke to introduce himself.
Hey everyone. So yes, thanks Claire for that introduction. Yeah, my name's Luke. I also work with ANZ UK Education. I'm part of the Permanent Opportunities team here. Been here for almost a couple of years now. I used to be a primary school teacher before joining ANZ UK. I guess, yeah, in my job, I support a lot of special needs teachers and design technology teachers throughout Melbourne and regional Victoria, and also also involved with a lot of our department education-based roles, which supports educators from overseas that may need sponsorship as well.
And I'm Isaac. So I work alongside Luke in the Permanent Opportunities team here at ANZ UK. So again, looking at contract and permanent opportunities here in mainly Metro Melbourne. I guess, you know, beyond myself, there's also a wider team that look after, I guess, more a broader range of talent pools than what you see in, I guess, Luke and mine sort of descriptions. So yeah, I'll let James introduce himself as well.
Oh yeah, thanks Isaac. Yeah, I'm James. I'm our temporary opportunities consultant based up in Sydney. So yeah, we work with you know, teachers, supporting them with that day-to-day work and block work in you know, independent and department schools around Sydney. Yeah, back to you, Claire.
Great, thanks guys. So we've got a good mix of expertise from both temp and perm, and then we've got the Sydney and the Melbourne base. So just to introduce who we aren't, as you know, New Zealand educators, we're not really used to working through an agency. We are a global company, so we actually have 2 offices here in New Zealand under the arm of EP Education. You may have heard of them. They support New Zealand-based educators finding work in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, and also support overseas educators coming into New Zealand. So at the moment they're really busy. Lots of UK educators are coming in, and lots of Canadians and Irish are really interested in teaching in New Zealand. So they are supporting that way. We've got 14 offices across the US. You do need to have the right to work in the US, so it's a little bit harder for us. But if you were lucky enough to have a US passport, we could certainly help you right across the country. And then we've also got 4 offices across the UK. And so we can help you in London or regional or even in Wales. So, but what we're talking about tonight, just drag us over here, is obviously Australia. So we're going to go into detail around what we offer and how it all works. The idea is that it's 360-degree support. So some of our educators will go directly to the UK and finish their time there and not ready to come home to New Zealand. So they might have a year or 2 in Melbourne or Sydney as a bit of a softer landing before they come home. Some of our educators will go the other way around, save some money up in Australia first, and then go and do their travels in the UK before they come home. So wherever you are in the world, you should always be able to contact someone, whether it's in the daytime here in New Zealand, or maybe you're speaking to someone in the evening from the UK or Australia. So moving on, reasons to go. People have lots of different reasons to move away and teach abroad. The main one, the reason for Australia, is really around career growth, because there are so many opportunities for you in Australia. There is a real teacher shortage there, and we're having a lot of new grads, particularly from the South Island, who haven't been able to find roles in New Zealand, and then immediately getting snapped up from schools in Australia. So more opportunities, and we also go right through to executive senior leadership level as well. Pay rates, some of you may have seen those pay rates on the New Zealand Teachers Facebook group. Generally it's around 30% higher across the board than what you can earn in New Zealand. So that's really attractive for us, especially at the moment. There's also been news around the ability to gain Australian citizenship now as a New Zealand passport holder. So there's a 4-year pathway that we can follow and become a citizen over there and get the same benefits. For me, my reason was for travel, but really the biggest thing I got was the experience. So the change, teaching in a new curriculum, it's brilliant on your CV, and principals really love that point of difference, and it can be a really nice stepping stone into the international school sector. Whoops, sorry, I've got both of them on there. And then we also have a really good community over there. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but we're ANZ UK really value bringing educators together and creating events and opportunities for you to meet others so that you're feeling really connected. Okay, so making the transition. This is all me talking before I pass over onto the others. This is just the boring stuff, but this is the important thing too. So making the transition, what you need to teach in Australia. So the right to work is, if you're a New Zealand passport holder, then you are fine to enter the country whenever you like, and you can start working in relief or straight into a permanent role. So we're lucky enough to have the immediate right to work in Australia. So there's actually nothing that you need to do. You don't need to apply for any visa or anything like that. If you're on another passport, there are several different visa routes that you can take, and if that's the case, I'll get you to send me an email, and we can sort of give you some advice around that. We're not visa experts, so in many cases we might send you to a visa specialist, but some of the visas, like the working holiday visas, are quite simple and straightforward to gain. So right to work is normally quite straightforward. Qualifications in Australia, they have a 4-year degree to study, which means if you've done the Bachelor of Teaching or the Bachelor of Education, you wouldn't meet the same requirements. Luckily, we have a Trans-Tasman Mutual Recognition Agreement in place. And what that means is if you are registered as a teacher here in New Zealand, whether you're provisional or full, then that will translate over to becoming registered in Australia, either at the same level. So if you're provisional here, you can become provisionally registered in Australia despite having that 3-year degree. So we often get asked that question a lot, but as long as you're registered here, you can use that to gain entry and teach in Australia. If you're an early childhood educator, you need to go through an organisation called ASEQA first to get your qualifications recognised. If you're an early childhood educator, we've got a form for you to complete later. Please let me know and I will send you through all of the information that you need on that. But that's your very first step to make the move. The Trans-Tasman Mutual Recognition Agreement works both ways. So if you're a new grad and you immediately graduate and you're provisionally registered, you can go straight to Australia and teach. And if you gain a permanent role or a long-term role, you can work towards your registration in Australia. If you gain full registration in Australia, which the Australian team put me right if I'm wrong, but in most cases you can do it in 1 year, then you can use your full registration in Australia when you come back to New Zealand. So it can be quite a good route to shortcut your registration while at the same time, earning an extra 20,000 a year. So it's a really good option for new grads to sort of get underway, pay a little bit more of your loan off, and get your registration done at the same time. Australian curriculum, we are quite closely aligned. New Zealand educators seem to slip into the Australian system quite smoothly. If you've got questions on that, great to direct them to the Australian team on board. But generally it's a pretty smooth transition, apart from, I think, history. Is there anything else to add on that, guys? No? Okay.
Nice.
Okay, registering in Victoria. I might leave this to the Victorians.
Yeah, so the Victorian Institute of Teaching, as Claire mentioned, there is that recognition of New Zealand and their registration across with the VIT, or the Victorian Institute of Teachers. So that process can be quite sort of smooth for Kiwi educators who have already got that, registration over in New Zealand. It can be a little bit, painful for other international educators, but yeah, for Kiwi educators, it's a lot easier. As you can see there, it can take sort of up to 6 weeks, and the cost is $167. Anything further to add, Luke?
I think in terms of just to make sure to be prepared of what they might ask, just general things, police checks and so forth, documentation, just making sure that you've got all that up to date. And generally, as Isaac said, for Kiwi educators, it's quite a smooth transition there. It shouldn't be too challenging.
Yeah, it's surprising with that mutual recognition speed, they just tick it off, but we do have to provide quite a bit of paperwork. It's a little bit painful. But yeah, like Luke and Isaac said, it's straightforward, but it'll take you a little while. It's a bit to do. But we do have a blog guide under our blog, and I'm here to support you on this side as well for when you're ready to go through that process. James.
So I mean, a little bit different getting registered in New South Wales compared to Victoria. It's probably, the time frame is probably just a little bit longer in New South Wales with a few more checks to do. So you can't actually start the process for getting registered until you are in New South Wales. So basically, once you arrive, you'll need to apply for your Working with Children check, which takes like max 48 hours to come back, and that costs $80. Once you have that, you can apply for your NESA accreditation. The NESA is what allows you to work in independent schools, so private schools in Sydney and across the state. And then, to work in public schools beyond that, you need to apply for your DET approval to teach, which takes the NESA takes 2 to 4 weeks, and then the DET approval takes probably 2 or 3 weeks. So a little bit more to do, and you can just teach with just your NESA, but we definitely advise getting that public school approval as well. In terms of documentation that you need to have, we definitely encourage overseas educators to have stamped copies of their university transcripts and their degrees, because you will have to upload those to NESA when you're applying. And if you have those ready kind of while you're overseas, it just makes the process, a lot smoother once you've got that Working with Children check and you're ready to apply. And that's basically it for, New South Wales registration.
We have got a chat box running. I can see the number of questions popping up in there, but we can also have time at the end. You can pop your cameras on and ask questions as well. So we've got an expert in there answering some of those chat things, but otherwise we'll try to get to them at the end. So importantly, where we cover, so I'll pass this on actually before I start getting myself. So Victoria.
Yeah, so there's plenty of options for work in Victoria. We support schools across both metro and regional areas. So, obviously Melbourne all the way up to sort of Echuca, Gippsland, pretty much wherever you can sort of see on the map in Victoria, there's schools out there that we support, in terms of permanent and contract opportunities. In terms of the CRT sides of things, we do a lot more work with metro-based schools. I don't really know too much about many of the regional opportunities we have for CRT work, but
I can add a little bit more there in terms of regional CRT. There are parts of regional Victoria that we do have CRT options. Options in terms of the schools that we work with. But I guess the further out we go, it does become a little bit harder. So I think the only area in Victoria in terms of regionally CRT that we have, constant work, I believe, is the Bendigo area. But I guess for those that know the geographics of Victoria, when you're going, a little bit further to say far out west, Ballarat, areas like that, we don't have that greater reach when it comes to CRT in those spaces.
So CRT is casual relief teaching, or just what we call relief. Yeah.
James, maybe.
Everyone, how many have we got across Melbourne? How many? We've got 3 offices across Melbourne. Would you call Dandenong as well?
Dandenong office, Geelong, and we've got 2 in Melbourne, our St Kilda Road office, which is very close into the heart of Melbourne, as well as Collingwood. And I believe we have another office now, Notting Hill.
Yeah, we've got another office in Notting Hill as well, which is sort of further down near Dandenong, that sort of way.
Yeah.
So we've got 5 offices across Victoria itself. So, and how many consultants would you say we're up to now about Christmas?
Well, in our team, in terms of the permanent opportunities, we work with, I think we've got now 13 or 14 that look after general teaching based methods, but within that we also have a couple of our colleagues that look after more those executive levels, which we'll go into a little bit later on. But then we've also got our temp space, which the number is far greater than that. I don't know the number at the top of my head, but quite a
50.
few. Is it 50? There you go.
Oh, there we go.
50. So a lot of support there.
And then we've got our early childhood teams as well. So I think numbers wise. So we've got amazing coverage right across Victoria. So and it's open to all early childhood, primary, secondary, and special needs. So New South Wales, James.
So once again, opportunities in New South Wales are relatively similar, but a few key differences as well. We look after primary, secondary teachers in both that casual space and the permanent space. Early childhood, Cert 3 diploma, ECTs, we look after that in the perm and the casual space as well. And also before and after school care as well. So as it says, USH opportunities. There's also those exec positions in our office as well, potentially for you. There's also regional opportunities. We have a consultant who lives in Tamworth. I'm not sure if anyone knows Tamworth, but town of about 40,000 people. And he's, placing, teachers in those regional parts of New South Wales. It's more so on the permanent side at the moment in the regions. It's not really for CRT or relief work just yet.
Yeah, we had a couple of Kiwis going to that region in regional New South Wales. They started in January and they're really, really loving it. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we've obviously got our Queensland and WA ACT office as well. So Queensland, we actually have one of our colleagues, his name's Brendan, who sort of shares his time between Melbourne and the Queensland team. So They work on a lot of their ongoing perm-based opportunities, whether it's in primary or secondary teaching, and then with that, they've also got casual, casual opportunities in the early childhood space as well, whether that's ongoing or permanent as well. We have a couple of offices there, Brisbane office and Cairns. So our colleague, he lives in a part of Queensland called Hervey Bay. I'm not sure if anyone knows where that is. When he has to drive to the Brisbane office, a little bit of a journey for him. But he looks after independent schools there, as well as I believe there is some DET involvement or Department of Education involvement as well. Regional opportunities as well in that perm space and early childhood. And then WA, Western Australia, or the Australian Capital Territory, ACT, they also do a little bit of contract and perm opportunities as well. No CRT in those spaces yet, or casual relief work, predominantly just contract and permanent at the moment. So that covers primary, secondary, special needs and early childhood. And those are both metro and regional opportunities. So in WA, they've got the Perth office, and in the ACT, they've got the Canberra office there.
Yeah, and I guess just to touch on Queensland again, looking at sort of, for more of those people looking at Brisbane or Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast as more of an option and wanting to move to those areas, we do a lot of work there. We're starting to do a lot more work there in terms of primary and secondary roles with a lot of independent and faith-based schools up there as well. So just something to keep in mind.
Thanks, guys.
I'll take this one. One of the work options we can provide, obviously, as I've already talked about, is that CRT casual day-to-day work. So the rates are here. So in Victoria, it's $358.55. I believe that is flat across the board. In New South Wales, it's approximately $380 for a provisionally accredited teacher and $450 for a proficient teacher. Your level of accreditation just depends on your years of experience, basically. Benefits of casual are there's pros and cons to being that day-to-day relief teacher. It's a great way to kind of build relationships with different schools, network, get out and see Sydney, see what you like, and then maybe that will kind of shape where you want to go into for a more permanent opportunity. We always say it's kind of like a try before you buy. You get to try out the school before you commit there long term, and I guess the school gets to try, see how you go, and see if they want to commit to you long term as well. So it says there opportunities to move into contact roles. There's that flexibility. We have an app which allows you to log what days you're available. So you're obviously going to be traveling. You want to see the country. So maybe you want a long weekend. You can take a Thursday and a Friday off on your app. Head over to Uluru and explore a little bit, and then work the other 3 days of the week. So really try and keep you flexible like that. And I think casual's a great way to go, as is perm.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice feeling at the end of the day as a relief teacher when you walk out of the classroom and you're done. You've got nothing to do. So it's nice to have that at some point in your career and give yourself a little bit of a break, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And perm.
Yeah, beautiful. So our team, we predominantly work with, permanent contracts. So whether those are short-term, term-by-term based, semester or all year, or ongoing. Essentially there's about, as we mentioned before, 13 in our team now, 14 really. And we're divided across different methods. So as mentioned before, I look after a lot of those special needs, design technology. Isaac looks after, PE-based roles and so forth. Yeah. And it's our job, essentially. We work very closely with independent schools here across Melbourne and regional Victoria. Schools will come to us. We have good relationships with them. They might need help with, a lot of their roles that they're working on. And then, we work closely with our educators that we're supporting, discuss these roles with them, or potential schools that they might be open to, being considered for work as well. And part of that process is basically we have an initial conversation with you, discuss your current circumstances, what you're up to, what your area of expertise are and so forth. We go through your CV closely, and then we pretty much get your CV formatted, and we'll obviously provide you support with your CV as well. So if you're a little bit stuck on what you should be including within that, we've got templates and examples that we can provide to our educators as well. And then, hopefully, if you get an interview, then we'll provide you with some interview preparation as well that we like to do beforehand. So whether it's a couple of days before whatever it might be, we have a good idea of what our schools tend to ask their educators. So it doesn't hurt. We're obviously a free service, so any support is great support. And then, hopefully all goes well in your interview and you get a position from that. I'm not sure if I've missed anything there, Isaac. Or...
No, that pretty much covers it all. I was going to say, I guess what you were talking about before with CRT being, obviously that flexibility of, basically at the end of the day, walking away, not having to worry about, I guess lesson planning, all that other things. You've got on the flip side of going to contracts and looking at permanent opportunities where you do have to do all of that sort of work. But I guess the thing that you do get out of doing all of that work is a bit more of a sense of community within a particular school, getting to know the ins and outs of more of the curriculum and getting to know, more a better in-depth community you sort of feeling you get from going to the same school day in, day out.
Belonging.
So obviously there's a time and a place for everything. CRT is great if you just want to have a dabble in looking around at different schools, and if you're sort of more comfortable and want to sort of get your teeth stuck in a little bit more, those permanent and contract opportunities are really exciting and a great way of getting stuck into a school community. So
it was definitely like relieving is great, but then you do miss the relationships with the kids as well, and that was one of the big things why people teach, isn't it? So very rewarding. And the types of schools that you guys are mainly working with.
So when we refer to independent schools, we're referring to, I guess, those private-based schools, whether they're faith-based, grammar schools, so forth. But we do also work with some of the department schools or public government schools as well. So our temp team works obviously very closely with them for CRT as well as independent. Contracts can come from those as well, but more so now than ever. We do also have, some relationships with the department schools as well, certain department schools for some of their contract opportunities as well, due to, the shortages that we have. Everyone needs a bit of support. There's a school out there for everyone. So whether you are looking for, maybe you've worked at, a faith-based school prior and, you enjoy that community there, then obviously we work with a lot of those schools. If you maybe worked at a grammar school previously or again, a department school, and that's the path you're going, absolutely, there are those opportunities there.
Well, actually, we've got this next slide, which is some jobs.
So we pulled out a few jobs over the last sort of, today, basically. This is not obviously everything we're working on, but just a couple of jobs that we currently have available over the next sort of for semester two and onwards. So, giving you a bit of an idea of what sort of roles we work on and giving you a better idea of, if you're interested in something like this, give us a call, send us an email, whatever it may be. We can potentially help you out in doing something like these. So, I think we've all got multiple jobs on at the moment in terms of we've got a long list of jobs that we're all trying to fill. So I guess our job is to really meet and match what you're looking for in a role to the school and what the school is looking for. So that's really what we're here for, and really to help you navigate that process and find the right school for you and make sure it's the right fit for you long term.
You'll also see from that list there of the hot jobs that we've got currently for semester two. We mentioned before in terms of some of the independent schools that we work with or government. You might have a preference, whether that's faith-based and so forth, but it could also be, working in a co-ed school, co-educational school, whether that's secondary, pure secondary, or P to 12. But yeah, you might want single stream, whether it's all girls school, all boys school. Obviously, yeah, there are those, I guess, types of options as well in the independent space that we work with.
Yeah, totally. And I guess further to that, if you are looking for something more part-time, so you can see down on the third job there, if you're looking for a part-time contract, that we do have those available. You might want to do, say, 3 days a week within a school and then do CRT for the other 2 days to sort of get a better idea of what's out there, and then maybe make a decision towards the end of the year. There's plenty of options out there to sort of suit what you're after. So don't feel that you're locked into a full-time position. By taking a contract, we do deal with a lot of part-time contracts as well that you might be interested in.
And not to, I guess, keep dabbling on that, but I guess important to know as well is the support that you get. Obviously, when you're in a school and you're working full time and you're on a contract or you're ongoing, your school is going to be your first port of call in terms of receiving help and so forth. But I guess even when you get a position, you get an offer, and you start taking that role, it doesn't stop there. With ANZ UK, we'll still be checking in with you. After your first day, first week, first month, and then on a term-by-term basis as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Claire.
And I didn't get this from New South Wales, but they have equally looking for a wide range of educators for immediate starts across New South Wales as well.
Yeah, 100%.
James, I might pass you on to tell us what an ambassador contract is and how it works.
Yeah, cool. So the ambassador program, we used to call it the guaranteed work program. So it's basically we basically sign you up for basically as many casual days as you're looking for in throughout the term. So we can say, oh yeah, we'll find you, for example, we'll find you 5 days of casual work every day. And then, you'll be that day-to-day teacher, but you will basically guarantee that call will be coming in. And it's almost like a peace of mind that you will be getting that casual work. Because, I mean, it can be quite daunting moving from, New Zealand to Melbourne and not really knowing if that call is going to come. So that ambassador program is really great to get signed up for that, to guarantee that work. It's really only available at this stage in Melbourne, just due to the nature of work. It can be available for you in Sydney. It's just a little bit more specific with, where you need to be located. Ideally, you have a car. Ideally, you can travel up to kind of 45 minutes in the car. So, in Melbourne, I'm quite sure, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm pretty sure that, a lot of teachers are, on that ambassador program and, utilized in that day-to-day capacity every day. Yeah, so it's definitely something we'd look to, get you guys signed up for if you were to come over.
And with the Melbourne side of things, if you do, you can get an ambassador contract signed before you leave New Zealand. So you do have that safety blanket there. It's also can be really helpful for you when you're finding a flat, because it's proof of earnings. If you sign it before you go, and then once you've gone and worked a term, you'll get the cost of your flights over paid back up to $600. So that's just a little bit of help to get you there. And then another sort of relocation scheme that we've got, which I'll pass back to the Victorian team.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Yeah, so the Victorian TFI roles, it's also referred to as the targeted financial incentive. So we've been working on these roles with the Department of Education for a couple of years now. And essentially the whole point of it was for hard to staff schools, or schools that are finding it hard to find educators. And it is with department or government schools. So it's essentially in 3 groups. Your first is roles that are, and essentially if you accept the role and you're obviously successful for it, you get an incentive of $9,000 up front. Now that's a before tax figure, just to keep in mind, but those are in roles in Melbourne. So you're looking at a lot of special needs schools, or schools that have maybe a slightly more challenging demographic in terms of behavioural needs. If you a bit further outside of Melbourne, 2 to 3 hours out, we're looking at roles like, in Shepparton, Bendigo, Ballarat. Those roles, if you're successful, you get $21,000 up front. And then for the third group, which is the more rural locations, so further out in Victoria, populations probably, a couple of thousand, so very small towns. Those rural locations, if you're successful for roles, you get an incentive of up to $50,000. And with all of those roles, at the end of your second, third, and fourth year, you get $9,000 at the end of the year. A lot of these roles, they tend to be mainly ongoing. So even if they say that they're a contract for, say, 3-4 years, after the first 12 months, the Department of Education will reach out to that school, because obviously we, correspond with them very closely, and they'll say, yep, all right, we've noticed this educator's been working for 12 months. Can we get them to ongoing? So usually if you take a role that's on the TFI, it's always going to switch to ongoing. One thing to note about these roles, you need to be eligible. You need to be either a citizen of Australia or a permanent resident. So if you're born in New Zealand, you're a New Zealand citizen, then these roles, you're eligible for these roles, because obviously due to the Trans-Tasman Agreement, you're considered a permanent resident. So that's essentially how the TFI roles work. I think I've covered everything there. Essentially, it's just whatever's available in terms of it uses a system called Recruitment Online. So that's where the roles are advertised, but we do support those roles. We're coming to the end of the cycle at the moment. So if this is something that does interest you, it should be extended come June, July. So those opportunities, there'll be more of those come, I guess, next financial year. If I may, Claire, I wouldn't mind just speaking very briefly about another, I guess, initiative that we've got. I know it's not on the slide.
Great, no, go for it.
It could just be of benefit to any educator that is here at the moment listening, that is living in New Zealand, but maybe isn't a citizen of New Zealand, and they're on a visa and they're looking to come over to Australia as well. There are some schools in Melbourne and Victoria that will offer things like sponsorship, but we are working with the Department of Education on another, I guess, initiative that is to help those educators that are needing sponsorship in schools. All of these schools that are eligible are government schools or department schools. It is a bit more of a process, and I guess there's a lot more involved in terms of documents that we need. But if that's something that does interest you, there is those roles as well. I'm not sure if I can really talk to it for too long, because it might go for a little bit longer. But
it's fine.
If sponsorship is something that you are needing, there is a tender that we work with the Department of Education for those roles as well at government schools in Victoria.
Is that open to primary and secondary, or are they just secondary?
Yeah, so it is open for primary and secondary. There's a lot more secondary roles than there are primary, but there are primary roles there. And within that, yes, special needs as well. So if you're a special needs educator, there are those types of roles as well. And essentially, I guess the benefit with this particular tender or initiative is that there's relocation support and things like that. But again, very similar to the TFI. We're just waiting to see if that one will get extended as well. But more just to make people aware of it.
Oh, that's great to know. I'll update that as well so that we include it next time. And with those TFI roles, you can sort of have control. You get sent the list, don't you? And you can look and go, oh, that looks like a good spot. I'd like to apply for that one.
Correct. So when we work with those TFI roles, it's a little bit different to the independent schools where, essentially all you need is a CV. With these ones, you do have to write out what's known as a key selection criteria. So that's something that you do have to do prior. We can support you with that, just like we do with the CVs. We've had a lot of experience with key selections now, so we'll proofread those. We've got a little template that talks about how to write a key selection criteria as well, if you do need that support. Essentially we hold your hand right throughout the process. No different to independent roles in terms of the support that you're going to get.
we had a new grad from Christchurch who was struggling to find a role. She took a TFI role, started out in 75,500, and she is teaching in a right out on the border at a tiny little place. I think there's about 500 people in the town, and she got the $50,000 on top. So, you know, it's a pretty good start for a new grad. But yeah, we have quite a few people taking up that.
Absolutely. I've
Yeah.
supported a few, I think about 4 or 5 educators from New Zealand, probably more actually, that have come through wanting the TFI. So no,
Yeah.
it's been great.
Yeah. And places like Bendigo and Shepparton, they're still quite big. It'd be like a Napier or a New Plymouth kind of place. So, you know,
Quite large.
yeah. And we've also got the other bonus that we've got is an educator referral. So if you do refer us to anyone and they go over and work, I think after 15 days, you'll get $100 as a thank you for that. So it's another one. And then, yeah, who we support. So pretty much everyone, really. Let's get us out of the way. I think we have got some ECE educators on this evening. Sorry, we've probably been speaking quite a bit about primary and secondary. We have got a huge of early childhood within the company. The last webinar that we did was ECE specific. So if you want, I can send you the recording, which has ECE consultants on that webinar going into much more detail about the process with that, because there is a few things that are different from the primary and secondary route. So yeah, you can let me know and I'll send you out that so you can get a bit more detail. But we also do primary. Oh, sorry, yeah, jump in.
No, I was going to say, yeah, like you said, I know we've sort of been talking a lot about the secondary and primary space. Obviously, Claire, you've just touched on early childhood there. Support staff is another area that we obviously do support, whether, you know, you're a teacher's aide, technician as well as a big one. So, you know, science technician, wood assistant, food assistant, and yeah, so forth. In fact, we just had a teacher today that just got a wood assistant role at an independent school in Melbourne that we were just supporting. So yeah, it's still many of those opportunities still that do pop up. Yeah.
And within the perm team, as you mentioned earlier, we've got some of the consultants specialise in the senior leadership and principal roles.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So it's executive level roles, but deputy principals, head of departments, so forth.
We do a lot in that space as well.
And then I think we've covered types of schools as well. So primary, some of our primary schools to go up to year 8 over here, as you guys know, and then we have sort of intermediates as well, but they're not so common over there, are they, the intermediate schools, year 7 and 8? No.
No, not really in New South Wales anyway, no.
Yeah. I think apparently there's a couple of middle schools or something that like the intermediate teachers, but otherwise, yeah, it's primary is just that prep to year 6. On events, as I mentioned at the start, it's a really big focus of ours to make sure that you are feeling connected. You know, you've relocated, you're in a new country, so we have pre-departure events before you leave so that you can ideally meet you know, people, so you'll know people when you arrive. Some people will meet their potential flatmates before they go, or at least someone that they can catch up and have a coffee with when they arrive. We've got a really active Facebook group called Educators Moving to Australia. There are a lot of Canadian, Irish and British educators on that group as well. So some of the questions, there's lots of questions coming through from everyone, but some of them will be more around visas or their registration route. So some of the questions don't let them worry you, because yeah, but you can just fire through questions to me at any stage if you're worried about anything. But it'll make you see how lucky we are. You know, we're not having to do all these extra steps that other citizens need to do. Welcome events. So the offices, particularly in Melbourne and Sydney will frequently run educator events. The last one in Melbourne, I think we had 140 educators along to that event. So yeah, lots of things going on like that all the time. Somewhere to live, just touching on this. I know some of you might just be at this very start of your journey, but it's good to have a heads up around where we fit in this and what we can do to support you as well. It's pretty competitive. I might, if you guys want to jump in on anything.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say it is still very. I mean, I think throughout Australia and most of the world, I think everything's picked up, everything's become really, really competitive for housing, especially in metro areas. We find that there's a few sort of apps and things you can use to get a bit of a sense as to what's out there. In Melbourne, there's a Facebook group called Fairy Floss. So you can get on that and have a look, and it sort of is more of it's like share accommodation and that sort of stuff. If you're inclined to travel, and just want to sort of share a place and not sort of have the cost of getting set up and all of that. So that's a really good one, and that's used pretty widely throughout Melbourne. I think flatmates.com as well is sort of used as well, but that's a good one as well. So those are two really, really good resources if you're looking at Melbourne. Any further thoughts?
I guess it's always good if you don't have a mode of transport in terms of a car, trying to find somewhere that's either near a train station or a tram stop or bus transport as well. I think the area that seems to always get a lot of traffic or foot traffic in terms of people coming from interstate or overseas tends to be that sort of St Kilda kind of area. That's where it can be quite busy. So if that's an area that you're looking at, it can be quite challenging. So try and be flexible in terms of an area that you're open to. As long as it's public transport around, it is quite easy to get around. Melbourne's not too bad with PT. No, I think Sydney might be a little bit better potentially, but
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, pretty similar to what Luke and Isaac said. Public transport is solid, but yeah, I mean, housing is just super. Yeah, it's super competitive at the moment. I'd say kind of the more east you are, like towards like Bondi and the eastern suburbs, the harder it is and the more expensive it is to get a place. And then the more kind of west you go, the cheaper it gets, and more people kind of looking for share houses and more places available and whatnot. There's if you want to do some research, I'd look into the inner west of Sydney suburbs, like for example Newtown and Marrickville are really fantastic places to live in terms of public transport, people looking for housemates, and it keeps you really kind of versatile and flexible getting to different schools for CRT work. It lets you kind of travel around the whole of Sydney, whereas if you maybe are in Bondi, it's not the worst, but you kind of restrict yourself a little bit to that eastern suburbs, as the public transport isn't the best kind of out there. So I'd look into the inner west of Sydney, but there are good public transport, train and bus links, and a bike could be fantastic as well. So yeah.
Awesome. And again, if you're doing CRT, we can give you a rental reference from to support you getting into a flat, or if you've signed an ambassador contract. Otherwise, obviously, having a perm contract is going to be helpful. We've got an amazing blog. There is so much information on it. I'll send you out the link tomorrow when I send out a little bit more info. But the Victorian area guide and the Sydney area guide go into lots of good detail around finding somewhere to live, as well as the suburbs and things as well. So that's a really good resource that you can find on our blog. That one. Okay, so yeah, the process, where to from here. We normally get the ball rolling anywhere sort of within a year. That's still a decent amount of time. Sometimes people will get in touch and they're heading off next week. Obviously we don't have to get visas or anything, so really as long as we've spoken to you and we've got a CV from you, then we'll connect you onto the right team in Australia. So first steps is having a chat with me here. I'll find out what you're after, and then if you're looking for a perm in Victoria, then obviously we'll connect you with them. If you're thinking Sydney, or you're an early childhood teacher looking to go to Brisbane, we'll put you in touch with the right team. The compliance side of things is pretty straightforward. The registration covers pretty much everything we need to do. We will need to contact referees, so that's something to be aware of. If you're looking for a permanent role, normally we'll do that just before interview stage. Is that right? Yeah, so referees, registration, and that's pretty much all you need to do. If you're an early childhood teacher, you'll need to do a first aid course in Australia on arrival before you're allowed to start. And I think there might be some safeguarding. What's your safeguarding thing for Australia? Vulnerable, is it, what's it called? Is it safeguarding? Getting that mixed up with the UK. Do you have to go through a course online little module and do a safeguarding?
Are you referring to the mandatory reporting?
Oh, mandatory reporting. Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
that was the UK
reporting.
version. Yeah. So you'll have to do, that's like our Vulnerable Children's Act, but you'll have to sort of go through the similar process, which is just an online module, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then depending if you want CRT, whatever route you go, you will be connecting with the Australian team and speaking to them before you arrive, getting to know them, so that by the time you land, the idea is that you're fully cleared, ready for work. Apart from obviously, if you're going to New South Wales, you'll be ready to hit the ground and get your NESTA application underway. Okay, and why us? As I mentioned, the blog is a massive resource. You can find so much information in there. We normally, when we do our webinars, we'll normally record them and they will be found under the blog as well. We've got a learning management system, which is that online system. And I think if you're doing CRT in Australia, do you need to do a minimum amount of PD, James?
To qualify for your, so if you're trying to, I guess, upgrade from a provisional NESA to a proficient NESA, you do need to do, I think it's 100 hours of professional development in a New South Wales school. So yeah, there is that aspect, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, our learning management system is sort of online modules that you can sort of use and credit yourself towards professional development, which is great if you are just doing your CRT. We have an amazing info pack for teaching in Australia. It's quite in-depth. It covers the whole process and it's a really good resource to have on hand. And then, yeah, just the rest of the things we've already talked about. So I'm going to flick over now to questions because so we've still got time, because I can see the chat, but I can't actually find the questions. I don't know whether you guys can see I'll just try and find them. But I'll say thanks for those of you who have to go. Thanks for joining us. But if you want to stay around and hear people's questions and get a little bit more info, feel free to turn your camera on and ask them. Otherwise, we can start. Here we go, sort of working through the questions. Anne may have answered. Oh my goodness, there's a lot. Start at the top or the bottom? Can you guys see those questions? Perhaps if you pick any out that you see and haven't been answered and that you want to. Oh.
Yep.
Wow, go Anne. Gosh.
Anne's done a great job there. I think she's gotten top of
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, James, because I get a bit confused on that as well. Someone's asked, what does $380 proficient mean? So when do you flick over from proficient to?
So that 380 rate is for a provisional accreditation. For a proficient accreditation, it'll be it's around 380 for provisional. It's around 450 for a proficient teacher. Yeah, what level you're accredited at depends on your experience level, basically, and it just transfers straight over from New Zealand. So I guess if you're a fully accredited teacher in New Zealand, it'd because of that mutual recognition, it just puts you on the correct level.
You go on to proficient. Yeah, great. So if you're fully registered here, then yeah, you should be proficient. So you should be getting sort of the 450 a day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. What specialist teacher roles are available in Australia? For example, RTLB here in New Zealand is equivalent to what in Australia? I can't quite remember what RTLB stands for, but I know that it is equivalent to what's known as a learning diversity teacher, learning enhancement, learning enrichment. They all mean the same thing. It's just different schools will refer to them differently. But yeah, so the difference is though, with a learning diversity or learning development teacher, whatever that might be, they're only at one school. So I know with RTLB, I believe it's you're doing that role, but in multiple schools. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in Australia or in Victoria, I know for the roles that we have, yeah, those roles are you are employed by the school. So you are a learning development teacher at that one school. You'll have the different cohorts that you're working, different groups. And yeah, you're supporting those students with their additional learning needs, as well as the staff in educating them and yeah, supporting them.
And I see Anne sort of answered one of these questions from Beverly. Do you deal with jobs in other places, e.g. Perth? So yeah, I mean, obviously we spoke about obviously Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Queensland, I should say. And that we also got, we're starting sort of more permanent roles in Perth as well, permanent contract roles, although they are sort of limited. So yeah, it's sort of coming online slowly. And same with Adelaide and same with Tasmania. So we it's just slowly getting there.
Someone asked about, oh, sorry, you go, James.
Oh, sorry, Claire. There was one from Sarah Gibbons, the daily rate of pay. Is it inclusive of holiday pay? No, on the casual side, no, you just paid obviously throughout the term daily rate, and no, not during the holidays on the casual side. If you're perm, yes, you would be obviously paid during the holidays.
The same as here in New Zealand. Yeah. And someone asked about the registration requirements for Queensland, and I should have included that. I'm sorry. That's the Queensland College of Teachers, and you can register with them before you arrive, and it's pretty good. It's probably easier than Victoria, and you actually need to physically post off some of your documents to them. But it's QCT or the Queensland College of Teachers. So I'm sorry, I missed that. Oh, thanks, Anne. She's just chucked that in there for us. It's amazing.
There's a question here from Samantha with regards to studying to become a primary teacher in New Zealand, and asking whether she needs, there's a 2-year registration. Just confirm, I would just curious whether you know this, Claire, would that degree be a 3-year or a 4-year degree, or would they be able to get registration after that period, or what is it? What's the
yeah, so as long as they have a teaching qualification, then if you've got couldn't find that one. If you've got a bachelor's degree, then you will need to register as a teacher in New Zealand first before you go. So it costs a little bit more because you've got to go through that process, and then you can use your New Zealand registration to go the mutual recognition pathway. If you have a graduate diploma, which is looked upon as a 4-year degree, then you can not register with the New Zealand Teaching Council and just register directly with Australia. That makes sense.
I hope
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I think that's answered Samantha's question. If not, hopefully she can put another question in the box or something.
Because we've got, when we qualify as a teacher here, we have to teach for 2 full years to become fully registered or proficient in a New South Wales equivalent, and we've got a 5-year window to do it. And so yeah, but our system is 2 full years. So that's why it's quite good, because a new grad can go and teach in Australia and potentially get fully registered within a year over there, and then use that mutual recognition coming back.
Yeah. And Marlene has actually asked, is there an age restriction? And you know, asking, is 62 too old?
I'm assuming that could be for sponsorship. If I'm wrong, I'm not sure. But if it is for sponsorship, there is
Probably won't need it as a Kiwi, unless you.
yeah, actually, yeah, you wouldn't. No, that's right.
No, 62 is not.
But yeah, if you were from another country and you needed sponsorship, then yeah, I believe it's under. Well, that's only if you're going for permanent residency. It's under certain age.
But in terms of coming across here, New Zealand citizen, 62 is not too old, and you can come over, so it wouldn't matter. We'll be able to.
Experience is great.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
With the early childhood, there's a few questions around early childhood teachers. There's a CEQA is what you have to do. No one else can tell you what you'll come out as. And again, if you don't have a 4-year degree, you're unlikely to be recognized as an early childhood teacher. So unfortunately, the mutual recognition pathway doesn't work for an early childhood teacher. So you must go through a CEQA to get your qualification assessed that way. Yes, so registration is a downside. I mean, the mutual recognition doesn't work for early childhood.
Sorry, Claire. Go ahead.
No, good.
No, that's okay. I was just about to answer another question. That's all.
Oh yeah, no, do that.
Okay, so I just see a question from Sarah Gibbons. Is the daily rate of pay inclusive of holiday pay? So I guess if you're talking about a permanent and contract opportunity, that is obviously inclusive of holiday pay. So you'll get paid over the holidays if the contract extends over that holiday period. So if you take a semester contract, you know, you've got a break in between the semester. You're going to get paid during that break. In terms of the CRT side of things, that is the daily rate. So you're not getting paid over holidays. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just getting paid for the day you work.
Someone else asked about pay rates. I might try and get something up on that. All of you guys are having a look.
Yes, Beverly, it seems like you're very keen on moving to Perth, asking about salaries for Perth. In terms of, I guess, you know, salaries and whatnot, yeah, it obviously depends on the state. Sort of, it does vary a little bit, but you know, generally across the board, it's not too dissimilar from, you know, state to state. So you can probably get a rough idea, you know, by just looking at some of those general pay rates that I think you put out there, Claire, on that link, or you will be able to put out.
Yeah, I'll drag it over. Here it is. Someone's asked about CRT pay rates. So in Queensland, we don't do CRT in Queensland for primary or secondary, only for early childhood. So these are the pay rates. I think, Anne.
Claire, I know I'm upside down. I can't stop to fix it. But
should I put something else up?
No, but this one here, this is what the government must pay their employees. If you're doing CRT through us, you're employed by us, and we actually are higher than the minimum rate here. So it's a little bit, so for instance, range 1.1, where we pay at about range 2. It's hard to show actually on this one here, but there's another one that will show the CRT rates. Okay. So this is if you're employed by the government in a government school. But if you
so this is just a rough guide.
A rough guide. And that's like for a permanent position, and like they're typically around $75,000 plus super going up. And that's for like someone that perhaps has like 2 years max experience. But if you're looking at CRT rates, like there is a table like this for that, but that's actually what the government pays their own pool of casual relief teachers. We actually pay above the minimum, substantially above the minimum for that too.
Okay, I'll have to get my hands on that one. Yeah, so just a bit of a rough idea for you. and as Anne mentioned about the super, in Australia, the government pay 10% on top of your salary if you're in a permanent role, or is that for CRT as well? They pay 10% on top of your salary for super. In New Zealand, we pay 3% out of our earnings, and then the government pay 3% on top. So, yeah, it's a much better.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Hi, can I ask a couple of questions?
Great.
There's two of us, two different households, but we're looking to move to Brisbane. I'm looking at the end of the year. But first question is, how often do principal or DP positions, I'm not sure if they're DP there, but DP positions come up?
Deputy principal.
Yeah.
For you
deputy
Aussies,
principal.
deputy principals, APs, we call them here.
Oh, okay.
That same thing.
So it really depends on the school, and I mean, yeah, because the leadership team or the leadership opportunities that we work on from a permanent perspective come up far and few between in Queensland. A lot of those opportunities will be coming directly through, I guess, the government and directly from the independent and private schools. We do work on a number of principals and deputy principal roles up there, but probably not as many as, say, New South Wales and Victoria. So I guess it does sort of vary, and I can't really comment on the frequency of how often those come up. But they do come up, frequently, I would have assumed, because people resign, people move on, people change states, people live life, I guess.
Exactly. So both of us have over 20 years experience teaching, been in senior management, special needs, behaviour, growth coaching with teachers. What would be the best way for us to approach looking for a job? Because I'm following all of this and I'm like, do you just go on Seek, or is it better to actually find an agency?
Well, I think, the first step is, I think a good starting point would be potentially having a conversation with one of our colleagues. He helps a lot of the executive team look for deputy principals, more of those senior management positions within Victoria, across basically Victoria and in Queensland. So that might be a good starting point, and he might be able to give you a little bit more information as to that process and potentially assisting you down that sort of your journey in finding that particular right school for you. Does that sort of make sense, Kim?
Yeah, it does. And I'm like, we've been discussing, would it be better to probably come in maybe as just a teacher to get a feel for the education system there before looking to go back into management?
Yeah. I mean, it's really up to you. Obviously, having the worldly experiences you do, obviously having that New Zealand curriculum experience is really advantageous, but there are obviously differences between the New Zealand and, say, the Queensland curriculum. So it's really up to you, and really depends on what the school is looking for, because as you're probably aware, those deputy principal roles, those assistant principal roles are very sought after. So it can be quite a competitive process. Some schools want a different perspective. They don't want to someone with all of that sort of insulated knowledge and sort of used to what the system is used to in a way. They want to see things differently, so they might be looking for someone like yourself to come in and sort of look at things from a fresh perspective. It really depends. I think that first sort of good point of call would be just potentially having a chat with Rob or one of our other leadership and exec team members, just to give you a better idea as to what pathways are available to yourself and what might be best for yourself.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Sorry, can I ask a question? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we've got you.
Oh yeah, sorry, my video is not working for some reason. I just want to ask, I've got a bachelor's degree in early childhood, taught and fully registered, was teaching for 5 years. And, in New Zealand, obviously we can go into primary school with that degree. So I've been teaching primary school juniors sector for a further 5 years, so 10 years all up. Wanting to know, when I go to Australia with the experiences I have, do I need to train further to be able to go back into primary school?
So with an early childhood background in Australia, I'm not sure about the other states. I imagine it's the same, but I know with Victoria, having an early childhood background, you can teach up to, I think it's grade 2 or maybe 3, but it is up to the school's discretion. So that can make it, I guess, a little bit challenging if the primary space is something that you're really wanting. But again, it can be up to the school's discretion. So best bet, I guess, yeah, look, if you're open to doing that further study, then that would be a pathway. Otherwise, if you're looking to, I guess, get away from that early childhood space and stay within primary mainstream, I
definitely love primary school now, and especially I teach in what's the word I can say, in a lower demographic area, so a lot more challenging. So I quite like that. So I was hoping, to, when we do look at going to Australia, I just wanted to answer with Queensland and being a different state, do they have different rules around that? I have heard a few things about teaching over there.
My knowledge isn't great.
Queensland's a bit tough for us, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Our colleague Brendan would be great to ask that question too.
Yeah, we can get him on.
Okay, that's all right. Thanks for your help.
No, that's okay.
We see another question from Sarah. It says here, she's asked, if you accept a permanent position in Victoria, did you say you're able to be considered a permanent resident so you can stay there 4 years, then get citizenship with new rules?
I think, I believe it's after 3 years you can apply for your permanent residency. You just need the school to, I guess acknowledge that and sponsor you for that permanent residency. But I believe it's after 3 years you can do that if that's the position you're in. Yeah.
Another question from Rowena. If you accept a TFI or if you apply for a TFI in a rural location, is accommodation supplied as it is in a smaller area? I guess.
So with those TFI roles, if it's the rural position where it's the $50,000 incentive, there's a support network through, it's a program called the STARS Initiative. And they do help out with relocation support and guidance. I can't quite recall if necessarily they'll have a place for you. I don't believe that's how it necessarily works, but they collaborate very closely with the school in helping you find a property to, I guess, reside in, whether it's renting, usually renting.
Just with that TFI initiative as well, if I can jump on, with the bonuses, are you contractually obliged to be at a school for a certain amount of time?
Sorry, I forgot to mention that one. So thanks for bringing that one up, Hayley. If with those roles, if you have to commit to those for 2 years. So if within that 2 year time frame you decide, let's just say after 12 months, you decide, oh look, great school, not really for me, not really what I wanted, or I want to try something else. Maybe I want to go to CRT. Because that incentive is up front, basically what would happen is it will just become prorated. So once you leave, I'm pretty sure it's the Department of Education that have the conversation with you. They basically say, yeah, all good. We just need, this certain portion of that incentive back, essentially.
Cool.
So still good. You still get to keep some of it, not all of it. But you don't leave with nothing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
I had a quick question about the incentives in relation to early childhood, because I saw there was some sort of targeted at 3-year-old and 4-year-old kinder. Do you know if those incentives are going to be running past June 2023?
Yeah, so we're going to be finding out, June, really, because that'll be close to that financial year bracket. So I'm under the impression that it probably will be extended. The last 2 years that it's been running, it's been very, very successful. They've got essentially a budget that they work with and a certain number of schools or a cap of roles that they have to fill. This is 2 years in a row now. It's filled that. So my guess is it should be extended. We won't know until, probably that June period. I imagine the incentives will remain the same because it did the last 2 times, but there's a change, I guess we'll find out. But come financial year, that's when we'll know.
No worries. And with registration with ECE, if your qualifications on the ASEQA approved list, do you still need to go through that same process of getting it assessed?
No, that's great. That's all you, as long as you've got this right state as well. So a lot of them, a lot of them are under Queensland, but then if you want to go to Victoria and it's not listed for Victoria, you do have to do it.
Okay, so just checking whether it's cool, perfect. I'm in the process of trying to apply for registration in Victoria, but it's proving to be a little bit difficult.
Get your ASEQA first.
Yeah. It says it's on the approved, but I'll look into that
it's
more.
pre-approved. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Hopefully. Yeah. I will let me know if fire through questions. Send me an email if you
Cool,
like.
perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Fiona?
Yes, I just have a couple of questions. So first one is that my background is early childhood too. So my qualification, so I've got 3 years bachelor for early childhood and 1.5 years for master of education. And my qualification has already been assessed when I apply for the permanent visa for 190.
I am.
So approved as early childhood teacher. And I'm just wondering, if I have already gained the fully registration, do I still have to get assessed with my registration for working in Sydney?
If you're fully registered in New Zealand.
Yeah, because there's 2 assessments. So one is to assess my qualification and the other assessment for the registration. If I already assess with my qualification, do I still need to assess my full registration to be able to work in Sydney?
Yes,
So
yes, I believe so.
Yeah, have you been assessed by ASEQA?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yes, but you'll still need to register with the state you want to teach in.
Okay. Yeah. My second question is, with my qualifications and plus 7 years working in early childhood, what the pay will be look like in Sydney?
I'm not too knowledgeable on early childhood pay rates.
Maybe the primary, because I'm doing Master of Teaching and Learning in primary as well. So
on the in a perm role or in a casual role?
Minimum role, yeah. I'm thinking of moving to Sydney next year.
Okay. Permanent role will be probably approximately, I'd say probably about 80,000 to start.
Okay. So would that pay depends on the qualification and working experience, similar to New Zealand?
It's basically dependent on your NESA level. If you're only just studying now, you'll be accredited as a provisional teacher once you finish, and that will determine your level of pay.
Oh, okay.
There is times where, given your experience in an independent school, you can potentially negotiate a little bit more.
Okay.
But yes, in the department, it will be a set rate depending on your NESA level.
Yeah, because in New Zealand, if I already fully registered with early childhood teacher, I don't need to get registration for primary teacher. So if I work at Sydney, do I have to get registration for primary again?
So yes, I believe you will have to apply through NESA. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. If you want to put your email address in the questions, I'm happy to shoot through some more information tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's all right.
Can I get a turn?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I'm Maninder, and basically I'm from India, overseas trained, like secondary trained from India. That is equally recognized by New Zealand qualification authorities, and I've been given level 7 for my bachelor's and level 9 for my master's of education. And I've been teaching here in New Zealand as a primary teacher. And then I moved to ECE. I studied ECE here in New Zealand. By the time I was registered, I'm fully registered teacher since last year. And then at the moment, I'm working in one of the primary school full time. So what would be my options? And I'm not actually New Zealand citizen. I'm just a permanent resident in here.
And then there is pick up, and so for individual things like this, we'll pick up with it, and I can talk you through your options. So what happens after this is we'll send you through a follow-up. We'll send you out the recording, and we'll have a form for you to complete. So if you fill that form in, any other questions that we haven't been able to answer, particularly around your individual circumstances, and then we'll follow up with you on those, and we can arrange a time for a chat and talk to you around that. But you will probably do have options for sponsorship in early childhood.
So what's the scope for like primary teaching if I want to do the same in there?
Then you could be looking at something like Luke said, potentially around, you'd be requiring sponsorship. So potentially looking at something like that, a sponsorship role. That's otherwise there are some visa options that you can look at. Someone mentioned earlier the 190. There's some other visas that you can have a go at.
Okay, I would like to have a chat with you guys after maybe then.
Yeah, you'll get the email tomorrow, and then we can arrange a time.
All good. Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you. Yeah, so if anyone's got any individual circumstances like that, we can it'd be great to have a chat with you directly.
Sorry, Claire, I'm just conscious of the time as well. I know if there's other questions that people might have. Is there a platform that I guess, we'd be able to get to the rest of those questions for any other educators? Because I know otherwise we could be here for a very essentially.
Yeah, so on the form that you'll get sent tomorrow, there is an area for questions. So if we haven't been able to get to your question, put it in there, and we will get back to you on that. So you'll get answered by that. So yeah, apologies, we have run quite a bit over time, and there are still a lot of questions to go, obviously, but put your individual questions on there, and we'll get through those for you. So thank you so much for logging in and joining us. Yep, the email will be out to you tomorrow, so look out for that. I think all of you do have my email address. I've confirmed an email with you today, so yeah, fire through any questions, but otherwise, yeah, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.